Well, what's up, everybody? It's your girl Erica from the Classy Climb blog. Today we have Dr. Meadows coming on in a second. Had a little bit of a glitch. I'm going to fix the audio. I know it sounds like I'm a little bit far away. Give me a second. Had a little bit of technical difficulties here with the audio. I see you guys. Thank you so much for putting your city and state in there. That helps me so much. When and where we are at and focusing on. What's up, Cam? Hey, everybody. This is the link for our package. Can you hear me, Dr. Meadows?
I can hear you loud and clear. How about me?
Let me fix this.
Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me better? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me better right now.
Can you hear me, Erica?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you. I think it's fixed. Okay. Let's see. I think it's better. It sounds clearer to me.
Okay, excellent.
So sorry about that. Thank you for giving us your precious time today.
Yeah.
It sounds clearer to me. Okay. And oh my God, people have been so great in the chat. They've been putting their city and state. They are ready to go and learn from you. They're so excited. They're excited every time you come on, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. That keeps me going, keeps me doing it. You know. Let me just do one more thing here.
Hardest working daughter on the East Coast, doctor on the East Coast that I know. I mean, I don't
Well,
know them all, but you're
yeah,
one
you
of the
don't
hardest
know them
workers.
all. Some of my colleagues, they definitely be grinding. Definitely. Let me just make sure I got the chat up here. Okay. All right. All right. I see the chat page is
Mm-hmm. It's
is
popping,
going
you
well.
guys.
Okay.
I'm,
Good.
I'm gonna speak to the audience real quick, and then I'm gonna let
Yeah.
Dr. Meadows set up his screen. Man, what is up, Jabras in Raleigh, North Carolina? We got Texas in the building.
Fort
We have
Lauderdale. I see.
Fort Lauderdale, Spring Hill, Tennessee. Brandon Jones, Mentor Shelley, Harlem Real Estate Stories, Phoenix, Arizona, Texas checking in. Thank you, Mr. Humphrey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Philly. Okay, Jill Scott's hometown. Philly's in the building.
Oh, chill,
Harlem in the
Scott.
building. We're not even going to start. West Palm Beach, Florida. Tammy Brennan, Georgia. Sparkle Sims, Lancaster. Okay. Has anybody grabbed the Alternative Financial Medicine book by Dr. Meadows? I'm going to have that link in here shortly, working with Kim Kim.
And I surely appreciate a review if anyone has done it thus far. Everything is 5 stars. So I appreciate that.
Dr. Meadows, we're wanting to join the Dr. Meadows investment group.
Yeah,
uh,
I put in the chat. I was like I did have one for a couple of years actually. Helped me with my real estate. Got everybody paid back once I
mhm.
refinanced out. Don't have a group right now, but that's something that might come back up.
Man, you got Miami in here.
Mhm.
We got Mod Squad coming on, as Frankie Robinson says. Decatur, Georgia. Listen, Skynet, not tonight. Charlotte, Houston. All right, everybody, listen. Thank you so much for being here. Rayford, Nashville, Tennessee, all of you. If you have not gotten Dr. Meadows' book, Alternative Financial Medicine, you should grab it. It will be in the description, and it will also be in the links if you guys give me a few seconds. It's a great book. If you please could give him a review on Amazon, I love it. It's tough getting a review, Dr. Meadows. It's tough
It
because
is.
I literally sold 600 books, and I was like, please review.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, where's that at?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that at? So, what, please introduce yourself to the audience and what beautifulness are we bringing to the crowd tonight?
Well, my name is Dr. Kenyon Meadows. I'm a practicing radiation oncologist. I'm a cancer physician. And one of my passions is investing and financial literacy and learning about business, money, and the whole nine. And that's how I found you, Erica, by searching on YouTube and everything. I've been following the Classy Climb blog for at least a couple of years. And then last year, I finally decided to write a book on investing, alternative financial medicine, and basically it just chronicled all of the different asset classes that I was investing in that were outside of the stock market. So that included things like rental property and a lot of the online platforms now for crowdfunding, both for real estate and business lending and um, um, uh, the peer lending with Lending Club and things of that nature. So the book is very much a practical, like, hey, here's how you do it, here's what you can make, and here are the risks involved. So it's very, very how to. And so, as part of my general promotion and then trying to give back to the community, I come on and do these talks. And I'm the last couple of talks. I'm kind of out of promotion of my own book at this point, and it's more about just trying to give people some of the tools that I have used to get to where I'm at. And books are a huge part of it. I have read tons. And so the last time I was on a few weeks ago, we looked at the Jewish Phenomenon book.
People love that
And
interview.
yeah, and that was all about, what can we learn from other model minority communities in terms of our attitudes about money. So that was definitely a good one. And tonight we're going to be talking about another very key business book that was helpful to me in terms of getting my mindset right about business. And it's called the Emyth, standing for Entrepreneurial Myth. So that's what we're talking about this evening.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I like this book, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but
Hmm.
I realized, sometimes people go, I want to be a business owner because I do something the best. I'm
Hmm.
just the best. And I'm like, and then when you try to hire people, people will never do it as good as you. They'll never
Hmm.
do it as good as you, right? And you have to learn how to. There's some really great folks who are managers out there who would
Hmm.
actually probably be better business owners than some of us who are the creatives out here. But
Right.
I don't want to spoil anything. Uh, I definitely thank you, Cam. Put your link for the book
Okay.
in here. We'll definitely be putting it in the underneath, and we'll also put a blog post up. I'm getting better this month. It's November. We're supposed to put out blog articles every day, but
Oh
you
man,
know
that's
how that
tough.
goes.
That's
It's
tough.
very tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So whenever you're ready, we're ready to learn from you.
Okay, and I'm going to constantly be checking the chat and everything and to hit some questions off. And so let's see here. PowerPoint share. Okay. All right. I think we are. Are you guys seeing that the cash flow quadrant?
I can see it. Are you
Okay.
gonna push preview?
Let's see. Google. Oh, you know what? One second. I got to do
No
one thing.
worries.
Slide share. There's a little setting I got to do here. Where is that? Custom slideshow. Setup slideshow. Browse by an individual window. Okay. Hopefully, this should do it. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. So, as always, with all my talks, I generally start off with the classic Robert Kiyosaki cash flow quadrant. The Classy Climb blog is always encouraging us to make that transition from being employee over to business owner, small business owner. And the purpose of this talk here tonight is really kind of making that transition from the S or the self-employed person over to the a real business owner where the main thing is that you own a system of making money and you leverage systems and you leverage other people, and that's a big leap, and it takes a lot of skill to go from the left hand side of this equation as the employee or the small business owner or the specialist or the solopreneur kind of deal, where it's really your income is linear, and it's really based on the time for dollars model, and what it takes to get to the other side in terms of being a real business owner. It generally takes some skills that, quite honestly, are not inherent in us, and that's what leads to a lot of entrepreneurial failure, and that's really the main gist of the book. Okay, so the name of the book is called The E-Myth, and it's a business classic. I mean, this is more than 1 million copies sold, and he's had multiple versions of this book. And the subtitle is, why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. And this gentleman, Michael Gerber, he's kind of a legendary business coach, ranked as the #1 small business guru by Inc. magazine, and he basically made his bones as a very high dollar consultant to business folks in terms of helping them implement systems and processes and whatnot to make their businesses more systematized, scalable, and ultimately sellable. Okay. So that's really his claim to fame. And the reason I chose it out of all, I've read many books, okay, to help me in my entrepreneurial journey. But I think in terms of his framework of things, I think he frames things the best and most simplest to grasp. Okay. So what exactly is this myth or entrepreneurial myth? And Gerber divides people into three main categories or personalities when it comes to businesses. You're an entrepreneur, a technician, or a manager. Okay. And he says the myth is that businesses are started by people who are principally risk-taking entrepreneurs. So the myth is that small businesses are started by entrepreneurs risking capital to make profit. That's what we think most people go into. That's the reason behind them going into business. But in actuality, he says that when you really look at the data, most people that start businesses are really the technicians behind them. These are the people that are masters at the know-how of doing the technical work in terms of providing the product that that business might produce. And they're not very skilled at the other things such as managerial and having uh, an entrepreneurial side to them, like thinking big picture, thinking about marketing and things of that nature. And so, yeah, it's the barber that opens with the barber shop, the hairdresser with the beauty shop, computer programmer with a software company. And so the fatal assumption is that if you understand the technical work of a business, you understand a business that does the technical work. Okay. So, yeah, these three personalities, right? The entrepreneur is the person that gets all of the headlines in mainstream media. We love to talk about, for instance, like the young tech entrepreneur person who started this company in their garage or something like that, and it turned to be $1 billion company. And while that does happen, and even in tech, it's pretty rare for that to happen to that kind of scale. That's what's sexy and gets the headlines, okay? Because we like people. I think it's the most romanticized thing of being a visionary type person. Okay. Um, the manager person, we all know that person. This is kind of more of like the bookkeeper person, counting the numbers, making sure you're in compliance. That kind of person is a necessary person in business. But most of us, I think, are not necessarily attracted to that kind of nitty gritty detail when it comes to business. But they're an essential component. And again, Gerber says actually most people who start businesses are actually the technician part. They're the people, they're the tinkerers. These are the people, if you want it done right, do it yourself kind of deal. And they're happiest sort of engaged in the work itself. Okay. So I'll take a quick pause here just to ask if we got anything interesting in the chat or anything like that. Okay. Any questions thus far? Doesn't seem to be. Okay. So we will go back. Okay. Now, is the PowerPoint still back up now, Erica?
It's perfect.
Okay, great. All right. So, in all of Gerber's experience with working with people, he says, look, obviously we all have a little bit of all these three different personalities in us. And he thinks by default, most people are about 70% technician, 20% manager, and only about 10% entrepreneur. And like when you read these statistics about like 80% of small businesses fail in a certain amount of years and everything, it's because this entrepreneur side is not really nourished and developed. And when you think about it, right, there's certainly nothing in our school system that um, uh, in, encourages or develops entrepreneurial type stuff. I think our school system, including up until secondary education, post secondary, college, and everything. I mean, they're trying to churn out workers and manager type people. Okay, but if you're going to really step into the business arena, you've got to think more like an entrepreneur, and we'll talk about what that is. So in actuality, he's saying, look, you really got to have a nice blend of all three of these things working in concert with each other. And he advocates basically you trying to, and sort of the ultimate goal of this in terms of how your business would look is that you really should be thinking about how you're going to turn your small business. You approach it as if you wanted to franchise the thing. Even if you ultimately aren't going to, you ought to be thinking about it in those lines, and like, what does it take to get to a business that is ultimately franchisable and sellable and repeatable to somebody else. Okay, so and he talks about the the different phases of the business. Okay, so the infancy phase, now this is the part where you first start the business off, and you essentially are the business. You're the barber, you're the beautician or whatever, and you jump out there and you might just have like a small space, and it's just you doing that work. Maybe you used to do for somebody else, and of course, you've got to wear all the hats, but principally, you got to wear the hat that does like essentially all the work. So this would be very much like that S quadrant in the cash flow quadrant. Okay, the solopreneur. Okay, and you find yourself putting in a full day of work, doing the actual technical work, and then you've got to squeeze in the sort of management part of things, the bookkeeping, and then the marketing, and thinking about growth and all that. You got to fill that in kind of outside of the regular 9 to 5. And so this is really, really a hectic phase here. Okay. And this is where you can have burnout and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But assuming you can get past this, you go to the next phase, which is adolescence. Okay. And that's where you finally decide to hire somebody, usually somebody on the managerial side of things, the bookkeeper person, or the manager. And if you actually have, your first employee or something like that, that's where you at least initially start that first phase of trying to scale and trying to take some of yourself outside of the day-to-day work. Okay, and that's a big step, for people, and it's a step that a lot of people don't make. And one of the things in the Black community, that if we're ever going to change like our wealth position as a whole, when you look at the millions of Black businesses that there are, something like 95 or 97% of them don't have any employees. Okay, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Access to capital to get a loan and expand and that kind of thing, that's certainly part of it. But again, not really being mentored or having the thoughts of scaling up your business and being maybe a little bit more in that hustle mindset, because that's all. Sometimes I think our vision for how big our businesses can be sometimes definitely limit us. You got any comments on that, Erica, or anything we've said thus far?
Yes, and when I actually look over the numbers at blackdemographics.com, the companies that do have like the 5%, they really are big companies. They're big, construction companies, big healthcare companies. I think a lot of the smaller companies, they may be low tech, which is where we get into that technician talk. So there's a lot of thoughts I have, but I'm gonna hold them because it might go too far in the rabbit hole. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Rabbit hole. I like rabbit holes. Okay. let's see here. And then finally, you hit the maturity phase where you're really about like at this point, you've got managers in place, you've got technicians in place, and you're more on the true entrepreneurial side, where your main focus is like drumming up new business, um, and doing things of that nature, having a clear idea of how big you want the company to be, what new directions you want it to go, and working on this sort of really big picture stuff. Okay, and that's a phase that precious few businesses, black or white, ever get to, that start off small like that. Okay, so um, now again, Gerber says, look, from the very beginnings of your business, you ought to be thinking about it as if you're trying to set up a franchise that you're going to eventually sell. Okay. And so he's like, you want to follow the franchise prototype, even if that's not ultimately what you're going to do with your business. And what are the key components of that? Okay. He says, number one, you've got to document kind of everything about your business in terms
Yes.
of the operations of it. Okay. He's like, so, you got to have a Bible there where, in theory, if somebody picked it up and really sat there and read through it, they would have an excellent idea about how every facet of your business works. Okay. So having like an operational manual, and it's a great exercise for you as the entrepreneur to go through as well. And that leads to the next step, which is quantification and knowing your numbers. And when he talks about this and gives the examples, it is very, very granular detail. You ever notice when you go on Shark Tank and you watch some episodes on there, um, if the guys think that the person pitching them, it's kind of a viable, like they like the idea of the business, and it seems to me like where most things fall apart is when they start, when the sharks start asking these entrepreneurs their very detailed numbers, like how much does it cost you to make each unit, and how many sales did you make in this time frame, and how does that compare to last time frame, and to be honest with you, it's a level of detail that a lot of people don't want to go to. Um, we kind of want to do things more in generalities and maybe going off a feel. But when you really start to quantify the costs per this and sales per that, and get down to the very nitty gritty numbers, if you have that information, your business becomes a much more attractive potential sales target, if that's your goal, or even if it's not to sell it, if you want to set up the next franchise of it, for instance, and repeat it, you know exactly what it's going to cost you. Okay, and this is something that a lot of businesses, even successful small businesses, right, they don't do. Okay, um, but it's something that should be done and is advocated for. And then lastly, putting in systems. Okay, I mean, ultimately, when you have a business, what you really own is a collection of systems that ultimately produce money in a leveraged way. Like, because you have a system going and you're leveraging the labor of multiple people, and you're leveraging the efficiency of a bunch of systems. Okay, Amazon uh is gonna it's about, it and Apple are the $2 trillion companies, and I think Amazon is going to surpass Apple probably by a lot when it's all said and done. And when you look at a company like Amazon, like, what are they really? I mean, they're a big conglomeration of a bunch of incredible logistical systems that can get you a product, anywhere you live in the United States in like 2 days, or less, after you push a button online. I mean, the incredible orchestration behind that makes it incredibly valuable. So documentation, quantification, and systems implementation are the things that you want to do and think about when starting your small business. Okay. So For small businesses to succeed, again, you gotta have all three hats. Most of us naturally have a lot of technician in us, a little bit of manager, and a small amount of entrepreneur. And the manager and entrepreneur piece need to be nurtured. Create a system for your business that works so perfectly, other people want one just like it. And create it in such a way that when you sell it, it can provide you with the life you want. If that's ultimately, and that's ultimately Gerber's thing. He tries to get people's businesses to a sellable point. Okay. Because those are the best small businesses. And we're going to take some questions, and I know we'll
So
have lots. And we have, and I know Erica's put the link up to my book in the chat there. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to hash it out.
so there's several questions I was going to come with people at, but um, I'll start with some of the questions in here, and then I'll say what I think about African American businesses.
Hmm.
Business Plan Pro says we have too many service businesses and aren't building enough tech and larger scalable companies as Black people. I challenge that because I know the numbers, but give me a second. Business Plan Pro said, are there any suggestions or shortcuts to creating this operating manual? I have an answer, but I'll let you go first.
Okay, so the question is there, there's not enough, we got too many service-based businesses, is that?
Well, we're gonna save that one for the end. I'm gonna save that
Okay.
one. I'm gonna come back because I have some numbers on it.
Hmm.
The Are there suggestions they could come up with or shortcuts to put together an operating manual?
I would say no. And actually, the desire to have a kind of a shortcut situation, that's really antithetical to what Gerber's preaching. Your operating manual, that's not the time to kind of do it in outline form. It's a thick document, it's a detailed document, but just the very exercise of you going through it will make you potentially see flaws or gaps in your processes and things of that nature. So no, the operating manual is meant to be this kind of the Bible of things. So no, you're not meant to skip on it. Now, if you've got a simple business and it doesn't take all that, great. But it is not the thing. You're not looking for a shortcut on that kind of thing. No.
And boom, that leads into that leads into part what I was going to say. Now, if you watch this channel, I love this book, and I usually when I talk to y'all, I go, "Can you tell me what you do in a day?" And so many people are busy doing what they do in a day, they really can't even. If I had to sit them down, just like on Shark Tank, and go, "What did you do? 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock?" Like it really takes them a minute to go. Oh, well, I want to come in a door. I answer the phone. I do this to do that. So I tell people, write out what you would do in a situation where both your legs are broken. You're in the hospital. You had a car accident, and somebody has to go in tomorrow and open up your office. Do you have a manual to tell them the next 10 steps they do that morning? And even a person to pick up keys from. And most people do not. And so there's so many levels to this whole conversation that a lot of times you do have people who love what they do, they aren't being paid enough, and they go, you know what? Start my own practice. I'll start my own practice. I do not have time for this, right? And then realize, holy smokes, like my friend who is actually a doctor, family practice. He's young, but he's Indian, and so he had all these family members donating money for him to start his own practice. Well, we got out there, and he's like, he realizes just so many things and so many parts, office managers, this, that, like he's exhausted. And he's a young guy, but he looks exhausted. Um, and I think even here, I'm totally not picking, but the shortcut conversation, like that's the whole point. So many people are trying to run so lean, like a lean business that can just take care of them and their family, that they're like cutting their nose off to spite their face. You know that saying?
Yeah, and I mean, now I will say this too, right? I think there's a couple of things that are, pretty big headwinds for us in this regard. Number one, our community wealth position and in our relationship to lending institutions, because as you know, lots of people in the dominant society, right? They tinker around with a business idea that and maybe it gets a little bit of legs on it. They generally have some people in their social circle that, quite honestly, can give them some friends and family type capital, and then of course or they got parents or maybe their own position as such where they can get a business loan and that kind of thing. And so those are two huge impediments that African Americans face. And so I think it's been that way for so long. Our mentality over what types of businesses we can realistically start and nurture, by definition they're going to be like the lower cost service based businesses that are these solopreneur type things, right? And say for instance, a gentleman I know, very well, and his course has helped out so many people. I'm really impressed with it. Like an Andre Hatchett with the mobile notary thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is great. That has helped out a lot of people based off his testimonials and everything, right? So I'm not critical of that, but that's just an example of like, that's not a business that is in general is kind of like a scalable, capital intensive, far reaching kind of thing. It's for the soloist kind of person, side hustle kind of thing. And again, I think that also speaks to the fact that our ability to get that money to springboard viable small businesses into something bigger and scalable, we got some challenges getting some of that capital.
Oh, for sure. And here's the other second layer to that. I meet Black business owners who own construction companies, all kind of stuff in Austin, Texas. But guess what? They're doing everything to 99 employees, subcontractors. Our whole setup is subcontractors. So we don't, it doesn't look like on paper we have any employees.
Mm,
Now we're having to pay high interest on my insurance because we are going at people's houses and working on people's fences near their trees that could fall on their house. But I don't
hmm.
have any employees in that company anymore. We had seven. Now technically we have seven subcontractors. So a lot of times being on that side of things, I know what people are thinking like, well, these Black businesses don't have employees. And I'm like, ah, you've that whole loophole system we've created in the 2000s of subcontracting, subcontract temp workers, 1099 workers has created a sea of people who they technically aren't working for you as far as benefits, but they are working for you, right? Now, I just want to, for the audience, if you go on blackdemographics.com, if you see Black owned business by industry, with or without employees, of course, other services is number one. Other services doesn't include entertainment or recreation. Number two is healthcare and social assistance. So that can be your home healthcare businesses. That can be your low tech medical supply companies. Any of those, right? And medical supply companies, I've seen people run them out of a garage. I'm in a warehouse, and it's like two guys working in the garage in the warehouse, and there's a small storefront up front because their clients, their end buyer is usually not individuals, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Number three, admin support, waste management, remediation. Four is professional, scientific, and technical services, transportation and warehousing, retail trade, construction, about 100 and looks like 36,000. Yep, companies, arts, entertainment, recreation, and then real estate, rental and leasing, which for me, I think we think real estate's number one in African American community. We think everybody's a real estate agent. Everybody's trying to be a wholesaler and investor. And that's just because you're in the small space of Instagram and YouTube. But yeah, I want you guys to go look over yourself. I don't want to, make you not be interested in that list, but it's over there. And you have agricultural, fishery, hunting. So you got this mining, quarry. I mean, there's so much over there. I really want you guys to see that. A lot of people assume, well, when people start talking about Black businesses, they talk about some restaurant that was rude to them. And I go, wait a minute, did you use a Black plumber? Did you use a Black air conditioning guy? Did you use a Black roofer? Did you use it? Like I started listing off stuff. And of course they're like, oh no, I couldn't find one. I'm like, could you not find one, or did you not ask for referrals? I think referrals are a strong business grower. Who did your cousin's roof, who did your mama's roof, is who you're going to use. And so I think that's also a problem in the African American community. Like right now, everything that works on my mom's house is someone from our family referral base. And we got a guy who's like almost 70 years old working on the ACs at all the houses we own. So, you know, it, there's a lot of reasons African American business is where it is. And I could do a whole show on that, but I'm going to calm down.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but the bottom line is,
There's a
we
lot.
yeah,
So,
we need bigger, we need scalable businesses. One interesting thing that happened under the the Obama administration, which is not great. The amount of loans to small business loans, the SBA, I mean, that percent went down from something like 10% down to like 2% or something like that. And it already wasn't great, but I mean, access to capital would be a big, big push. And it should always be a big push for, anybody that claims to be down for trying to fix the conditions of African Americans in this country. I mean, because that would go a huge way towards giving us some breathing room to try bigger ventures that aren't just service based stuff and grow some of the stuff that we already have. I guess I'd be curious to learn about some of those companies you mentioned that actually are big and have like 100 employees and stuff like that that are black owned. How they wind up scaling up like that.
What I've noticed in some of the articles I'm reading, the bigger ones are the real estate ones I've been following. So the whole, they've got 25 on staff who do their technical, their everything. Like there's a black real estate company in New York that I follow, and you got to see his technical staff, his support staff. They're all racist, but the main real estate agents, the big dogs, it's like two white people and the rest are black, and it's super interesting how he's run this big thing. He was on, he was ringing the bell, if you know what I'm talking about, on Stock Week up there.
Mm,
So that's
okay.
why I was following him. But there are a lot of what I'm loving and seeing, I think, and I'm going to start bringing more on this channel, is there are several black after there's so much from Afrotech that I'm upset about Afrotech that that's why I'm not talking about it. But like there's so many companies that are small, big technical companies that we just don't hear about them. Honestly, like I've did a week of research and been like all week long, like I never knew this was a black guy. And like, it's just like,
Right.
they don't get that level of marketing I think they deserve. But also something she was pro woman said on here, a common question is how much to acquire a customer? What are your margins? This is
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
thing. People
Exactly.
don't know, right? And that's why I was
Yeah.
talking about referral business. That's why I was talking about if I try to approach people about spending money, AdSense, spending money, again, somebody was talking about Salesforce in here. It's expensive. And I'm like, what can we do? How many customers do we need to make this not expensive? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great particular metric. Cost to acquire a customer. I mean, I think if you asked a lot of small businesses, even ones that are making it and thriving, a restaurant, a deli, a dry cleaners, like a kind of a local thing. I mean, they wouldn't. I think a lot of them wouldn't know, right? And let's be honest, we know there's a lot of small businesses out there. They're successful in that they sustain the lifestyle of the owner and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't follow these principles that we've been talking about either, and and again, from Gerber's standpoint, I mean, he would say like, look, if that's kind of all your goal is, of course, that, and you define success in that way, great. But he's just saying he's always looking at a business as something that can eventually be sold. And knowing all of that stuff, okay, down to the numbers, you make a much more compelling pitch to somebody else if they did want to buy it, if you knew that information, you
Let
know?
me take you out of it.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
really the thing. Every time I go on buysbidsell.com and I tell people, careful, look at the business. Are they buying the business because the business makes all this money? Prime example, there was a plumbing company on there. I'm like, it's Mr. Henry's Plumbing Company, right? I'm just
Mhm.
giving you a fake name. But you take Mr. Henry out of it, what do those customers call you? Do they call the office? So many people intertwine their personal with their business. They can't sell, and that's why people burn out and just quit. I'm seeing a lot of people who try to retire. Prime example, there is a plumbing guy we call. He's Puerto Rican, and he has two young guys that work for him, and he got tired of it. He's like, I'm retiring, y'all, and he gave them the business, quote unquote, right? So these
Mhm.
two younger plumbers, but who do people call?
Yeah.
They still call this older Puerto Rican guy. Everybody knows
Hmm.
his wife. His wife's a black lady, owns a restaurant. Everybody calls him. And
Hmm.
he's running around still fixing toilets. And you're like, I thought you retired. He's like, well, people call me. People call me.
Well, that's a perfect example where, like, maybe, again, he should have maybe sold them maybe like 70 or 80% of the business, and maybe he kept like 20%. And he's like, look, I'm just going to be, again, the face of the company or whatever, but I'm not going to do any work. You know what I mean? Like, my job is to be the face maybe and field calls, but you guys are going to be the one to actually go out and do the work kind of deal,
I know. You
as an
try to tell
example.
people,
Hmm.
it's hard to tell somebody what to do on their thing, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
You know
Absolutely.
it is. And
Hmm.
like, I know a lady with a cleaning company, and she still does a lot of cleaning. I'm like, you're getting older. You got two girls that work, do help you do some of the load. But she's like me. She has home advisor stuff and home advisor fees, and so she's like, well, I go out and just in case. They're worried about the rainy day, just in case.
Hmm.
Hard to turn
Hmm.
down money. Hard to turn down customers. And I'm like, I found I had to cut myself off. Like, I'm about to put I'm working through a system right now to put autoresponder on. Because if an email pops up, and I'm working on stuff, I'll answer it. And what that does is create customers thinking they can reach me 24 hours a day. Whenever I feel like emailing Erica, I'll email her, and I'll email her like 5 times a day. And I'll be like, hey, love you. You're the best. I can't answer every time, like I'm creating an unrealistic customer expectation. So a lot of the programs, a lot of things I'm doing right now is putting things through a system. So
Right, exactly. And I'm just curious, like in your own business, have you to that point now where you have a manager below you to kind of keep things in order and
we'll have a full office manager sometime next year due to a fund I'm creating, but we can't talk about that yet. We'll talk
okay,
about that off
full time.
camera.
Uh,
But I do have a young lady who does a bulk of the credit repair because I don't think people think I have a ton of sales, but I think I did 170 credit repair sales last month,
hmm.
and she does like 100 of them, and I'm still stuck with 70 of them because she's
Hmm.
still technically new. And
Yeah.
so we're fielding emails, we're moving stuff around. That's why I told people like I'm creating unrealistic customer expectations of me answering every single email. That makes sense.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
but it's lucrative. It's just again, there's somebody's quote in here that I want to write it on a notebook. Tammy Brennan says, "My father-in-law words are: If you're not careful, you will run past more than you can catch." And
Mm.
this is true. This is what happens with small business owners. I think the reason people aren't consistent on marketing, they aren't consistent in promoting a business because guess what? All of a sudden they got all these orders and calls, and they're the only one. And for
Hmm.
me, when I first started in fencing and painting, I'd hear all the customers would say, well, yeah, I called so and so, and they wouldn't call me back. So I called you. Right. And
Mm.
I'd laugh and go, well, thanks for giving us a chance. Right. And what I would find when I talk to that person, they were a wonderful fence maker. They were a wonderful painter, but they were kind of one man show, right?
Hmm.
One man show, some guys working with them. Or what would happen is their wife is the manager. And if
Okay.
they got too much going on, they got too much going on.
Yeah,
They don't
absolutely.
have a scalable thing. So
And now Gerber talks about the challenges, though, of course, of even going from one to two person, like bringing even that first person on, right? Like you've got to train them, manage them to a degree, and he talks about one of the mistakes that a lot of business people make when they bring people on. He says he calls it delegation by abdication, where you say like, okay, I brought you on, you manage this aspect of it, and you kind of totally take your eye off the ball. And he talks about the probably the most serious issue with that, of course, is say you bring somebody on and they're kind of they're in charge of the books and payroll and things of that nature, and you take your eye off of the financial numbers. And he talks about people getting taken advantage of, because like even if you bring somebody in like that, you got to maintain a pulse of it. You know what I mean? you
oh,
can't
for
you
sure.
can't totally just like, okay, they've got that, because you open yourself up to at worst, fraud and theft, and even still on the bad side, somebody slacking off and just not doing things as well as they should. So it's not like this easy thing to bring people on and get them integrated into your business.
Very hard.
That's work and skill too, and we know hiring people,
Yes.
it's hit or miss.
Well, the best part of why I hired this young lady is she came to me because she ended up closing her credit repair business because she was what? A single person, we had a baby, and she couldn't continue to market and continue to do this and that. And so she realized, well, I'm better at just doing the technical work. So though it worked out perfect that way, for her working underneath me. But the thing of it is I'm a big believer in office managers. I'm a big believer in an operating manual because um, there's a lot of insurance that you can purchase, and essentially, like, there's one that kind of prevents theft by employee.
Mm.
And so you got to show you got a system. You got to show you got processes in place. You got to show there's like, do you know what I mean? If you want to get that money back, or you want to get 10
Yeah.
or 20 grand back from potential fraud, and so there are horror stories where I've seen people getting taken advantage of, but I think that plays into that perfectionist. Nobody can do it like me. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
can do it like Sally. Nobody can do it like Jeff. And so instead of having somebody who does 70% well, 80% well, people literally are so perfectionist that they're like, well, if I can't do it, then I won't do it at all. And they'll sell businesses. I've talked to plenty of people who just completely sold because they could not train, they could not delegate, like, I mean, I've seen people get divorces because they're so tight on what their ideal is, on how it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to go. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a
Mm-hmm.
big part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people can start a side hustle, but not everybody can run a business for sure.
I see Candace Muhammad's asking, what would you say is the most important thing that small businesses should have in their strategic plan? How would you answer that one, Erica?
I would probably say, so third party payment systems is a big deal. Third
Mm.
party payment systems are a big deal. So when I have a customer, so at one point in time, they're now subcontractors going to houses. Clients would be like, well, do I pay them? Do I write them the check? So you have to kind of make sure your business is set up in a way, because customers just trust whoever comes to the door and they just hand the check to that person. And so you have to set up in your rules and operating agreement, like, this is how we receive payments. This is how payments are taken in. And so what I would do, because I'd be in the office, people would call and I'd take their payment via Stripe or whatever third party product, Square. And I was so surprised how so comfortable people were. I picked up the phone, hey, it's Erica from, Grandview, blah, blah, blah. And they would just give me their information. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like panicking a little bit, because I was like, what if I hired somebody and they did, who knows, right? So uh, payment systems are important. The online portal system that they get into is important. Making it easy for the customer, and how do you acquire more customers? I think these are like critical.
Mm-hmm.
You want to show, if you ever want somebody to invest in your company, there's several people who've asked me to do a small business loan, or invest with them, and I look at their setup and I'm like, this is all based on if you show up and do all the work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you just don't go to work next month, I'm going to have problems. And that's what really takes people out of, thank you, Mentor Shelley. Exactly. That's what takes people out of getting investment dollars. Right. And I think, honestly, the whole entrepreneur thing too, I meet people who have bad credit because they have bad payment history, and they have bad payment history because they kind of do their own thing on their own schedule. And so that also hinders them in the future from getting the business funding they possibly may need, because, all of a sudden some bank looks over and goes, okay, well, wait a minute, got a lot of this going on over here,
Mm-hmm.
even if they just do a secondary look. So,
Right. Um, let's see here. Proaman J says the pay has to be a little over minimum wage to get and keep somebody good. Thoughts on how to pay employees for peak production? Well, I don't have employees. I kind of like with Erica. The subcontractor folks that I'll have a relationship with, sometimes recurring, or kind of one off and everything. But I've oftentimes thought that if I ever did wind up, I have all kind of crazy thoughts, like owning a Panera or owning a Chipotle or something like that, which I don't have time to do. But I like to fantasize about owning a brick and mortar business like that. I often said that I would definitely pay my employees uh, well above whatever the competitor in the industry was paying, because I'm a big believer in employee retention and people feeling like, or kind of having a sense of, okay, I know I'm being paid more than I would be if I were to go down the street to the competitor. I don't mind doing that, and I'm willing to make less profit, certainly in the short to intermediate term, because I think you ultimately might wind up making that back on the whole retention piece of things. And honestly, too, I think the better you pay people, I think there's, obviously a little less incentive for them to steal and things of that nature. So I like to think I'd be on the very generous side on the compensation. tip.
Well, rule of thumb, like in Austin, people would pay painters like $11. I'm like, you're gonna get somebody who is acting a fool. And so then in the comment section, you would see people being like, y'all don't want to pay anybody. And then you talk to them and you'd be like, well, I'm gonna be paid 18 an hour. I was like, cool, no problem. A lot of times it'd be a small business guy who quit because he couldn't couldn't keep up, couldn't retain clients. Like it was so interesting. I met so many technicians who were like, you're not paying me enough. And the thing is the truth on Chipotle. This is the thing about Chick-fil-A. People talk, man, them Chick-fil-A people they treating them, how are they training them? Those kids get paid $15 an hour. Chick-fil-A is probably one of the only people that pay $12 an hour, $14 an hour, $15 an hour on average. Now you'll see a sign on the front door for $14 an hour. Now maybe we're like, $14 an hour? Oh, that's too, that's not nothing. And because you're an adult and you're in a different type of field. But in food service, they're paying a lot of Hispanic people minimum wage. So to see Chick-fil-A say $14 an hour, they are lining up to get that, right?
Right.
They just doubled their income in some states. If you see some teenagers who are working for $10 an hour, and you're the only teenager working for $14 an hour, it's incentive. And honestly, Chick-fil-A, one of our friends was a regional manager. Now, when she worked as a store manager, she made 62,000 a year coming out of college.
Okay.
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 And people say what they want about Chick-fil-A. She was making bank. Now, when she became regional, she made 92, but she had a ton more work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there's Chick-fil-A and Chipotle pay well. They pay their regional managers well. There is another comment. I missed it, and I don't want to miss it. Hold on. Hold on a second. Darn it.
As an HR professional, the
Oh,
pay.
wait. Hold on. I got a good one.
Okay.
Counter proof when we were talking about systems. I was a manager with Enterprise Rent a Car. They are so efficient at setting up offices and undercutting the competition, they would put all competition out of business. That is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
How fast can you set up a location without you? There's a guy in our town. He has 7 t-shirt businesses, right? All t-shirts really get made in one spot, but he has 7 storefronts, and it kind of puts the local t-shirt man out of business. And it's a black guy, and he's doing great. He's doing well for himself. But it's the appearance of like he's the only t-shirt guy. And he buys banners sometimes. He buys signs. And it's because you have to become efficient at setting up offices. Now, this is in that conversation of being scalable. Depending on what you have, I'll meet people who own 3 or 4 barbershops. And yes, they used to be a barber, but they really are more of a manager, right? They're making sure a certain number of guys are in there renting chairs, the area looks clean, and then they go set up another barbershop across town because they want to have more than one location to take in business. Just that way a military town is too anyway. But that's a big part of it is having a system. People are really sleeping on the fact that there may be some guy in your town who wants to start a car rental business, but because they're so efficient, that's just how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. I think if I saw anything else. Let's
You guys
see.
put in really great stuff. I'm just going in and out.
I'm sorry.
I told them they put great stuff, quick
Yeah.
comments in here. I'm just going in between. We're not going like right down the line. But yes,
Sure.
Mr. Shelley, E&O insurance and D&O insurance policies. Yes.
Yeah.
Business Pro Plan said it's true. The fraud and theft in business is true. Her mom's a bookkeeper in the horror stories.
Oh
I know
yeah.
horror stories of CPAs. Whoo!
Oh yeah.
I know a guy who had, I guess, the wrong CPA. I'll just say that. Him and his wife ended up paying back $50,000 in taxes, and IRS was not playing, and so it put them out. It put them out of business. But seen it. That's why it pays to you don't need to be a specialist on everything, but you need to be able to look over something and know it don't sound right. Right? Like
Absolutely.
the best thing I tell people, I use Intuit QuickBooks. People
Oh
fight
yeah.
me so hard on this. I'm like, yo, all I did was tie my 3 business debit cards to this system, the 3 that I use the most, and just push the update button, y'all. Just push the update button. That's
Yeah.
it.
I got QuickBooks too. It's a little quirky sometimes losing those connections or whatever, but my accountant pretty much insists on it. So
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be able to just enough. And I get it. Everybody's like, Erica, and I know a lady who does paper She does paper because her husband does appraisals at people's houses, but he's also a contractor. So she's used to in the 70s doing paper. So she still does paper to this day. She has great records.
Hmm. Okay. I think we
Go
got
ahead.
time for maybe one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to think. I don't see anything
You said Mental
here.
Kelly. I think you started reading it off as
Yeah,
a
the more pay is good, but creating a positive work environment that rewards top performance is even more beneficial to your organization. Well, sure, I can certainly agree with that. Incentive based structures, and
hmm
that's the thing, right? Knowing all your numbers will help you come up with a more reasonable incentive structure too. Like if you know how much each employee is kind of producing, how much revenue they're bringing in, and all that. If you know that very well, then it makes it a lot easier to say, okay, well, I'll pay X amount more if somebody can reach this threshold. But again, that just goes back to knowing your numbers to be able to even set up a good incentive structure, I think.
I would say on paying for performance. So when I would have door knockers, sorry if it's too loud, let me lower it a little bit. When I have door knockers knocking for us, the painting company, we didn't pay because they knocked so many doors per hour.
Hmm.
We paid per lead I could call and
Hmm.
get an appointment with. So let's say they knocked 100 doors in 2 hours. I don't know, sometimes people say they do and they don't, right? And they had 10 numbers on that piece of paper. I'm going to pay you $20 per each one if I can call and get an appointment because we're doing a free estimate. So it's like, call, can I get a free estimate? Yes. Okay. And so that's why you have to sometimes, that's why you see so many sales jobs offered online, way more than you see like standard salary because people work a little harder when there's some incentive. And funny thing, I was with somebody and they saw my one of my LLCs, right? And they were like, "You have in here, you're operating and in your stuff like rewards and benefits for employees." Gym membership, one Christmas dinner, one holiday in the summer cookout. Like I had this thing written there, and they're like, "What does that have to do with anything?" I'm like, "You have to be prepared in the future. If you walk away or you're not there, you have an office manager. You know, Erica, what are we doing for the holidays? Oh, in my original structure, I have it that I'm going to have it in the budget for a holiday dinner. I have it in the budget that y'all can have gym memberships to Planet Fitness, the cheapest one out there, but that doesn't matter, right? Like
Hmm.
in my beginnings that it's a part of my budget. And as much as people think that's crazy, you'd be amazed how people are like, "Oh man, I get gym membership at my job, and we got a Christmas dinner for free," or those things really seem to reward some people way more than others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate Erica coming on again. Hope we brought some value to the audience, the hundred and some people that's in here watching. Uh, I will be back sometime soon with yet another book review topic. I'd encourage everybody to go out and grab both books, Michael Gerber's and mine,
For
and
sure.
get your small business hustle on. If you already got it on, start making some of those changes to make it into a sellable enterprise.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and we could go on a rabbit hole about that. We'll do that for another day. We'll
Absolutely.
definitely talk about franchises too at some point. Um, But you guys, Dr. Meadows' book, Cam, thank you. You're the man posting that in there for us. All the last recent links are Dr. Meadows' book. You guys go ahead and go on Amazon, go check that out. Um, Roscoe said people at big tech banking companies probably get the best incentives. That's true. I think startups do as well. But thank you guys for your time tonight. Thank you, Dr. Meadows. We call these investing with Dr. Meadows. I wanted to call him Thursdays with Dr. Meadows, but whenever he can get in, right? So
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
call it whenever he can get in here. So, but thank you, Dr.
All
Meadows.
right.
Amazing.
All right, guys. We'll be talking soon. All right. Bye bye.
All right, later.